Hey guys, really quick, from the 26th of December until the 2nd of January, at Fantasy Sabers we're giving away a free The Sun affordable version with every sale using code Luke, so check that out. What if Luke Skywalker time traveled back to the Clone War? Let's start the story right after the Empire Strikes Back. Luke is back on the Millennium Falcon after finding out Vader is his father, Anakin. He meditates in his chamber, thinking deeply on his father, how he used to be a strong Jedi, and yet he fell to the darkness. He wishes he could have lived the life where his father never turned and grew up to know the man he was before Vader. Whilst he was meditating, the Force overcomes him as he opens his eyes to see his vision has gone white and he feels as if he's spinning around the room. He goes to put his hand on the cold Durasteel floor to realize it's not there anymore, and the white has encircled all around him. He closed his eyes again to focus on the Force, looking for answers as he feels a cold breeze on his cheek and opens his eyes to see he's been transported to a different location. Little did Luke know, the Force had granted his wish and had time traveled him back in time. Luke wonders where this is as he turns over his shoulder because he hears blaster fire and voices screaming, and he sees clone troopers engaging with droids in combat. This confused him, and he asks the man running past what's going on, who tells Luke the Separatists have invaded the planet and the Republic has come to save them. Separatists? Republic? What is he talking about? Could he be in the Clone War? Did he accidentally travel back in time? He can see the battle is heading towards the closest village and decides to help the civilians escape. He didn't have a lightsaber as he lost his when Vader cut off his hand, but could use the Force to pick rubble off people and block blaster fire to assist in everyone's escape. The battle ended whilst Luke was still evacuating people as he felt something wrong in the Force. Something familiar yet distant, and he turns to see a man walking towards him. Brown long hair with sharp blue eyes and a red scar down his right eye. Why does he feel as if he knows this man? He can definitely sense the Force in him. He must be a Jedi general leading the battle. He approaches Luke, who asks who he is and has to lie to the Jedi, telling him he's a local and was assisting in his people's escape. The Jedi say he did a good thing, saving these people, and introduces himself as Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Knight. Luke cannot believe it. He's lost for words. Is this really his father, Anakin? The hero of the Clone War? Luke wants to tell Anakin who he is, as he's always wanted to meet his true father, but can't expose the truth, or he may create a time anomaly. He's not entirely sure about the consequences of time travel. Luke says he was only doing his duty, but Anakin says he can sense the Force in Luke, and asks where he learned to control it. Luke lies, well technically, and says he was taught by his uncle outside the Jedi Order, who was also Force sensitive and no longer with them. Anakin pauses and thinks. He senses some familiarity in Luke, but thinks it's because he's simply an older Force sensitive. He's like him, wasn't picked up by the Jedi Order, and is like what Anakin would have become if he wasn't found on Tatooine. But this random boy was powerful. Anakin could sense it, and felt a deeper purpose for the boy. In Anakin's mind, he's just become a knight, and is allowed to take a Padawan, and since this is right at the beginning of the Clone War, he hadn't yet met Ahsoka. He takes an interest in the boy, and can sense his good heart, since he used his power to save people instead of getting involved in the fight. Anakin puts his hand on Luke's shoulder, and tells him he would like to train him officially in the Force, and offers for Luke to join the Jedi Order as his Padawan learner, and together they can make a true difference around the galaxy. Luke can't believe it. Is this really happening? Luke accepts, and together they go back to the Jedi Temple. Anakin takes Luke in front of the Jedi Council, petitioning to take him as his Padawan, and describes his reasoning. That the Jedi need as many members as they can during the war, and Anakin would be the best person to train him, since like Anakin, he was missed by the Jedi Order. But Luke is strong in the Force, but also selfless, and describes what he did during the battle on his homeworld. The initial reaction from the council would be to reject this notion. The boy was too old, but so was Anakin. Yoda senses a discernment in the Force, his Jedi principles inside of him, telling him to reject the boy from the Order. However, the Force is telling him something else, that this boy's future must be as a Jedi. There was more to this boy than met the eye. There was a reason he had evaded the Jedi sights for so long, and Yoda permitted Luke to join the Jedi Order as Anakin's Padawan, even at a disagreement to the other members. Luke was ecstatic with this outcome, and began his training under Anakin. Luke at this point was 22 years old and had been training in the Force for only 3 years, whereas Anakin had been for over a decade. So despite this small age gap, Luke had much to learn. They skipped the basic trainings that Padawan would usually go under, since Luke had already excelled past that. Anakin felt close to Luke. Their personalities were similar, and so was their potential strength in the Force. Anakin felt like Luke was the only other Jedi he could relate to in the Order, and they quickly formed a strong bond. Luke didn't know what to do. The problem is that Luke knows that Palpatine is the enemy, and the true Sith Lord Darth Sidious, but at this moment, is simply enjoying spending time with his father, Anakin, the man Obi-Wan described to him, and enjoys learning who he really is. He's met Padme a couple of times, introduced as Anakin's Padawan, and wanted nothing more to reveal everything to the both of them, that he was their child, but he knew that would mess up the timeline. Luke decided he will deal with Palpatine, but later, as he has to think on how to do this. Together they go on mission after mission with his father and Obi-Wan, having the time of his life. His power in the Force grows exponentially fast, to the point where it matches Anakin, and the legend of Anakin, Luke and Obi-Wan spreads across the galaxy, the heroes of the Clone War who could not be defeated. A year passes, and they've both grown immensely, and their bond is as strong as brothers. Only a couple of years apart in age, Luke thinks more on the issue of Palpatine. He wonders whether he should change the timeline, as in the original one. Although the Jedi were massacred and the tyrannical Empire killed trillions of people, the Empire was eventually defeated. Is there a chance that if he messes with the timeline, that the ultimate death of the Emperor and Sith will be prevented? No, it's not worth the risk. He can't stand by idly whilst Palpatine steals his father and family from him. Another 6 months passes, as Luke decided to wait until the climax of the Clone War to act. He knew Anakin would be the key in the Sith's rise to power, and would use his relationship with him to prevent him from falling to the dark side. We get to the time of Revenge of the Sith, the time when Luke sees that Padme is pregnant, and realizes the end of the war is close. He wanted to see for himself why Anakin turned, and they've just returned from killing Count Dooku and saving the Chancellor, a mission in which only he and Anakin were on. Luke realizes that Palpatine must have used Padme's pregnancy against Anakin, and for the next couple of days, will stay close to his father. Anakin is given a seat on the council the next day, but not the rank of Master, something Palpatine knew would happen when he appointed Anakin to be his representative on the council, to increase his distrust with the Jedi Council. Luke met with his father afterwards, who can sense a lot of anger towards the council, but there's also something else there: fear. What could he be afraid of? Luke decides to take a gamble, and decides to bring up Padme to Anakin, and tells him he knows of his and Padme's marriage, and asks whether the reason he's so upset is due to her pregnancy. Anakin looked at Luke with his eyes wide. How did he know? Well, I guess it's not surprising, considering how well they get on, and the amount of time they've spent together. Padme was the only thing Anakin had hid from Luke, and Anakin tells Luke that he's right, that she's pregnant, and he's having nightmares of her dying in childbirth, similar to those he had of his mother dying that ended up coming true. Something clicks in Luke's mind. Palpatine was a genius. He's turned Anakin against the Jedi Council by denying him the rank of Master, but also using the dreams to increase his fear regarding this, because he knows that Anakin would seek out the answers in the restricted section of the archives, something he could only do as a Master. Palpatine gave him hope of finding a solution to saving Padme, and the Jedi Council stripped it right away from him. But these nightmares have come at an awfully convenient time. Could Palpatine be behind this? Luke brings up with Anakin that the Sith could be behind this, that they both sense the dark side's power rising, and Sidious might be doing this to affect Anakin, the chosen one, directly. But Anakin is not fully convinced, and believes what he's seeing is the future, and can't take the risk that Padme will die. Luke leaves him, and has to decide his next move, and knows he only has one option. He meets with Obi-Wan in his personal chambers, and decides to tell him the truth about Padme and Anakin's relationship, but also about his nightmares of Padme dying in childbirth. Obi-Wan admitted to Luke that he already knew of their relationship, but Padme being pregnant and his nightmares complicates things quite a bit. Luke tells him that he thinks Palpatine is involved, and Kenobi invites him to a secret meeting with himself, Yoda and Windu, where they discuss things with them. Luke tells them that he believes Palpatine is attempting to manipulate his master, first through putting him on the council, knowing they won't make him a master, the title he wanted most, but also through his nightmares of someone he cared about dying, but doesn't tell them who. The Masters sit there unsure, and admit that they've tracked Palpatine to someone with a high leadership status in the Republic, but they say they cannot act without concrete proof, and everything will be decided when the Clone War has ended, and thus, Grievous must be a priority, as with his defeat, the Clone War is over, and Palpatine must give up his emergency powers. Windu states that his location has been found on Utapau, and Kenobi and Fisto are being sent there, and for the time being, he wants Luke to stay with Anakin to ensure he doesn't do anything reckless, and report directly to him if he needs assistance. Luke is happy with this plan, as he wishes Kenobi good luck in his mission. Shortly after Kenobi and Fisto arrive on Utapau, and their armies attack General Grievous, they fight, both Masters having fought Grievous before, and they successfully defeat him, and use his computer records to track the departure of a ship to Mustafar, no doubt the Separatist leaders. Word of this is sent back to the Jedi Council, with Yoda, Windu, Polar, Tin, and Shakti present, and decide to go with Bail Organa and the Republic Security Council to assist in the resolution of Palpatine's emergency powers. But before they do this, Anakin rushes into the council chambers and admits to the Masters that he's learned a terrible truth. Palpatine is the Sith Lord Darth Sidious. All of the Masters are shocked. Their worst fears have been realized. Windu calls Luke in instantly to explain the situation and asks him to stay here with Anakin until they return. Anakin rejects this, saying they need for him to come to fulfill his duty as the Chosen One, but Windu says this is final. The Masters and Senators leave, whilst Luke and Anakin remain in the council chambers. Luke can feel this is the pivotal moment for his father. He is fighting with the dragon inside of him, one half wanting to embrace the darkness to save his wife, the other too afraid to give up on the good man inside of him. If Luke wasn't there, no doubt the darkness would take over. But unbeknownst to Anakin, his son was there to guide him down the correct path. He tells his father not to worry, that whatever Palpatine has promised him is a lie, and the Jedi Council will help Padme if necessary. But there's still a chance his dreams don't come true, that it only shows one possible future out of many, and most of all, Luke will be there to support him. They both feel it across the planet, the emergence of the dark side, and the death of Jedi Masters. 1, 2, then 3, but ultimately the darkness loses, as its shadow extinguishes, as Yoda and Windu successfully defeat Darth Sidious. The Jedi and Republic Security Council take control of the Senate in this transitory period, whilst Windu returns to the council chambers to find Anakin and Luke there, but he walks up to them and turns to Anakin, determining that he has fulfilled his role as the Chosen One, fought off the darkness that attempted to consume him, and without his help, they could not have discovered and defeated the Sith, and would be granted the rank of Jedi Master. Anakin's eyes shot up, finally the rank he wanted, and Windu's purple lightsaber lowered across his shoulders, as Anakin became a Master. But Windu turned to Luke, and deemed he also played a part, and the Jedi couldn't have succeeded without him, and thus will be granted the rank of Jedi Knight. He accepts the promotion gracefully, and together, he and Anakin had saved the Republic and Jedi. About a week later, Padme's water broke, and she entered labor. Anakin had searched the archives for any hope of saving her, but there was no secret power. However, after Palpatine's defeat, his dreams stopped as his fear reduced, and started to believe his dreams were not going to become a reality. He sat across Padme, with Luke and Obi-Wan outside for support if necessary, but they were not needed, as Padme gave birth successfully to Luke and Leia, and the Skywalker family had begun. Luke felt an odd sensation watching himself being born, expecting this to end his time in the past, but he was wrong. Weeks after Padme gave birth, Anakin decided to come clean to the council about his children, as there was no possibility of him hiding their existence in the future. And with the war over and Sith's defeat, he decided to leave the Jedi Order and move to Naboo with Padme to start their family. Padme stepped down from her position as senator to enjoy the family life with Anakin and their children. They had both served the Republic for over a decade, and it was time to be selfish and live for themselves. Luke visits shortly after they settled in at the Naboo lake house. Anakin greets him, no longer a Padawan, but a Jedi Knight. They stand outside on Anakin's patio and look across the Naboo lake as Luke decides it's time to reveal everything. He tells Anakin the truth of his identity, that he is indeed his son, Luke Skywalker, and when they met a couple of years ago, it was because he had traveled back in time from the future. Anakin can't believe it. His eyes grow wide instantly as he finally realizes why he's felt so connected to Luke all these years. He asks Luke why he's come back, who says he wasn't sure originally, that he didn't mean to, but he slowly realized that the Force was giving him a second chance to save his father. Anakin paused and realized what Luke was saying, that in Luke's original timeline, he must have turned to the dark side. Anakin thanks Luke, but asks him why now? Why now reveal the truth? And Luke says, because he believes it's time to return back to his time, and that he'll need his father's help to do so. Together they start a joint meditation, both focusing deeply on the Force as they channel it through Luke, as he opens his eyes to see the same white expanse that occupied his vision previously, and he knows he's returned back to his time. He closes his eyes again, expecting to see the Millennium Falcon, but when he opens, what he sees shocks him. He opens his eyes to see the green grassy plains of Naboo, a deep valley below, with 4 houses surrounding a stone temple. But most importantly, he can feel the Force stronger than he ever has before. He feels a voice behind him, and turns to see the identity of the man, Anakin Skywalker, over 20 years older than what he'd seen moments ago. Anakin welcomes Luke back, and tells him that he trusts he had a successful journey. Luke's tongue caught. He thought he'd go back to the timeline when Anakin became Vader, but because he stopped his father from turning, he's returned to the same timeline he'd just left, only 20 years in the future. Anakin tells Luke that he did it. He saved him and will forever be grateful. Anakin walks forward and puts his finger on Luke's forehead as 20 years of memories are thrust into his head. Him growing up under Padme and Anakin, his other siblings, Balon and Kayla, and them all training in the Force under their father. Anakin had just transferred the memories of Luke in this timeline. The same Luke who had saved his father and was always meant to be. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to watch What If Anakin Was Reborn with all of his memories as a child or after Revenge of the Sith. Make sure to check out Fantasy Sabers and specifically our Boxing Day and New Year sale, where with every order with the code Luke, we're giving away a free The Sun affordable saber. Please subscribe as well. We're giving away a free NeoPixel saber with 100,000 subscribers. So don't forget to subscribe, and may the Force be with you.